What's up, everyone? My name is Rue Baby. Welcome to Handcuff Status Podcast. In today's episode, we will be discussing the effects of incarceration. We have an exclusive interview with Sherri and Trina Riel. Their loved ones are currently incarcerated, and these ladies are here to share their experiences and stories with us. So, let's get right into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Handcuff Status Podcast. Today, I have Sherri with me, Sherri Gordon, and Trina Riel. Did I say it right? Riel or Riel?
Riel.
Riel.
Yeah.
Yes, Trina Riel. Both of their loved ones are currently incarcerated, and they're here with us today to share their story and experiences with their lovers being incarcerated. First, I'm going to start off by just asking a quick general introduction of who you are. I'm going to start off with Trina.
Okay. Can we make Sherri go first?
Sure, no worries, no issues. Sherri, can you please introduce yourself? Sherri is actually someone who.
She probably. I am a prison wife to a lifer who is serving a sentence that he wasn't actually. He's wrongfully convicted, and I'm also a prisoner advocate.
My name is Trina, and basically, I wouldn't say a prison wife, but I have been the girlfriend, I guess, of an inmate that has been serving about 17 years incarcerated in an Alberta prison. And basically, I'm here just to kind of, I don't know, get the word out more on the stuff that's like missing and the things that are hard.
Yeah, no, we're happy to have you here because we just want to make sure that the voices that aren't being heard are being heard on our channel. I want to start off by just asking Sherri, well, both of you guys, but I'm going to ask Sherri first to answer it. How does incarceration affect families and relationships as a whole? And you can also add in your personal experience into that as well with how it has affected you.
I think it's can be traumatizing. I mean, because I studied the system, I worked the system, and I kind of say I live the system. I have a lot of knowledge that most women don't have. So it's not as traumatizing for me, but I mean, in my case, it's been a fight. I've literally we've been together 5 years, and it was only up until 2022, if you guys remember from my last interview with you, that I actually got to touch him. It was, constant ion scan hitting. It was constant. It was always something. I was targeted for drugs. And it's, I see a lot of families that go through, not where we are now, but other institutions, and they dread the ion scanners. And some people just don't go visit just because of that. Because, once you hit on the ion scanner, you get stuck behind glass, and nobody wants to do that. And once you're stuck behind that glass, it's hard to get off. I had to do 6 rounds of 3 booth visits. And during COVID, that was really hard because the institution was closed. And then every time I got off my last one, I hit again. So it was always a constant battle. And not even just with visits, just even things like phone calls. Phone calls are expensive, and a lot of people don't know things like me. I get a local number to wherever my husband's at. My phone calls are cheaper. They're 50 cents as opposed to 33 cents a minute or whatever it is. It's just, and it's expensive. Nothing in prison is cheap. So it's just all around. Sometimes it's a frustrating headache. And as an advocate, I get women, families, mothers, fathers reach out to me and asking me, how do you go through this shit? She's one of them. How do you go through this? What do you do? And everybody thinks I have it so easy. A lot of people think I know everything. I don't have it easy. I've went through hell and high water to get where me and my husband are today. I've really pretty much had dogs sniffing my mouth and my ass on a regular basis just to get through, because I've literally offered to be strip searched. I've literally called Saskatoon police when we first got here because we had such horrible experiences that I wanted the Saskatoon police to take me to their station, strip search me, and prove I had no drugs in me, and then go to take me and escort me to the prison. And they looked at me and they're like, no, we can't fucking do that. So it's stress. It's constant stress. I've been to Grand Cache RCMP to do the same thing when they told me I hit on the scanner. And I was like, there's no way. But I've learned a lot through my challenges that I've had to face that get me to where I'm at right now. but it is. I just learned there's, it's a lot of headache. And not even just that stuff. Like, you look at anything like programming. My husband's not a first time offender. This is his second federal offense. So he's serving life for the second time he served in life. He's literally been waiting 20 years. He hasn't been in for 20 years yet, but his last sentence, he should have been where he is now 20 years ago. But because of who he is, and he's an indigenous male, there's less programming for indigenous people or anyone who's non-Caucasian. Caucasian people get the programming a lot quicker than anybody else. And so I truly feel that if he would have got that programming 20 years ago, he might not be where he is today. But it's hard. And then you get people that tell me, well, my son took a program, but he didn't finish it, and they're putting on the program that they're finishing it, or they're falsifying documents. There's so much things. It's almost like everything's a headache. And if I didn't know the shit that I know, pardon my French, I don't know how I could get through this life that I live. I feel really bad for people like Trina, no offense, that don't know how the system works, and they're like, it's like bashing heads. I tell my husband sometimes, if you didn't know what it was, it's like your hamster spinning in a wheel and it just never stops.
Thank you so much, Sherri, for sharing your experience and answering that question broadly with the different angles of how it affects your family relationships. Thank you for even introducing, in a way, Trina's story by letting us know that she is unaware of how the system works. And you have been with your boyfriend for how long?
I've been with him for about a year now. He's been out on parole a few times, fucking it up. Basically, like, he's on a manslaughter. It's a life sentence. So CSC is gonna own his ass for like the rest of his life. Basically, I guess to add to like what Sherri says, like the programming, like there is nothing like she's very fortunate into like where her and Bronson are right now, because they consider them patients instead of prisoners or inmates. Where my man is, like, he's done about 17 years in the pen, and he's like, they still want him to do treatment. But he has to go outside of the prison to do this treatment, but he's got to jump through hoops. He's got to do all of these things for treatment. Yet, like, at the same time, they put in all these safe consumption sites, like in pens all across Canada. And instead of like for people to do drugs that they're not supposed to have in there anyway. So I'm super confused, and it's frustrating because like here we are, like I don't know.
I kind of wanted to go back to the main question because I don't think I've asked you how it affects your relationship and your family.
It is so hard. It is so hard. It's incredibly stressful. Like wondering when I'm going to get the phone call. Like I carry my phone like on my hip like 24 hours a day because you never know when they're going to call. And if you miss the call, they also, like they start feeling insecure or something along those lines. And if they don't call at a certain time, like consistency is a huge thing. Like they don't call at a certain time, then you start to worry. Like anything can happen in there. You get stabbed up, like the prison gets locked down, like anything. It's just incredibly stressful. Like it takes a toll on not only my mental health, everybody that like he's involved in, everybody's mental health. Like everybody suffers, them, us, like if there's children involved, like the parents, the brothers, the sisters, like everybody suffers.
Does your boyfriend have any children?
He's got 5 kids. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I have a child as well who knows him as well. So like there's multiple different, like even my kid worries like, oh, you haven't heard from him, and like blah blah blah. So it takes a toll on everybody involved.
Absolutely. Have you been having close contacts with his children by any chance?
I don't know. His children are all older, like they're all in and around like 18 to like 25 years old. So
Okay. I have a question thank you so much for sharing that. Um, um, Trina, I know that it was difficult for you to get comfortable to share, but I want you to continue to get comfortable to keep sharing with the questions that I have for you, okay? And Sherri, I just want to ask you, what advice would you give others in navigating relationships where a partner is serving a life sentence?
You gotta be patient, really patient. Like my husband right now, currently for probably, I would say maybe about 3 weeks now, he's actually very stable. He's balanced out with his meds and everything, so he's doing really well. Where like a month ago, I think we went 28 days where I was constant arguing with him, and I really learned to be patient. I know it's hard, but you got to really try and put yourself into their shoes. With my husband, I truly believe he's wrongfully convicted. A lot of people do now. So I sit there and I'm like, when I get pissed at him, I'm like, how would I feel if I was wrongfully convicted, away from my family, away from my children, away from my wife, and I'm sitting here day in and day out, sitting among people that I shouldn't be around because I didn't commit a crime. Now, I'm not saying my husband's innocent because he was a massive drug dealer at the time, but he's not a killer. And I just, he goes through a lot. And deep down, I mean, anybody who's ever spoke to my husband, anybody who ever met my husband, he's a good guy. He's a really good guy, but he also gets stigmatized because he was a very high profile case. And I just sit there and the advice I give women is you just got to be patient. I know it's hard, but sometimes you just got to take those lashes from them. But you got to keep them held accountable at the same time. My husband, Trina knows, everybody who really knows me knows my husband's an asshole sometimes. Like, I'm not going to lie. But I look at it in that, I have to understand what he's going through. He's dealing with a mental illness that has gone so many years undiagnosed. But where he is, he's finally getting the help that he needs to address that mental illness, and he's doing really well. And right now, I'm so happy. I'm proud of him. I'm happy that his treatment team has been giving him the help and support that he needs. And the other thing you got to look at too is a lot of these people they're separated from their family. And a lot of people, I see it. I visit every week, but a lot of people never get visitors. They've been there 10, 12, 15 years, never get a visitor. And that affects it too. And my husband does. Sometimes he gets affected because his family doesn't see him, or they're not able to see him. Phone calls don't get picked up. So I always just be patient with them. They're going to have their ups and downs just like we do out here. And sometimes they don't understand the ups and downs that we have. It's their constant bickering and saying you're cheating and throwing accusation after accusation. But I instead of fighting with your spouse, I just say, like, you know what, I don't engage with it. I hang up now. If he wants to get like that level on that and play that shit with me, I used to fight with him now, and I just like, you know what, fuck you, call me when you're fucking normal. And usually he'll call, and a few minutes later, and he'll say I'm sorry. So it's just a lot about, it's boundaries. Boundaries is a big thing when you have a spouse inside, because they'll try to walk all over you if they can. And if you let them, they will continuously do it. But I set those boundaries right up real quick. And he knows. He always calls me boss.
May I ask, is it okay if you would share what type of mental illness he was diagnosed with?
He hasn't really given the full thing, but I do think he has what was mostly like a drug-induced schizophrenia or drug-induced psychosis. That's what I think he has, because he did really engage in subculture. Now that he's sober for so long, and he's on the right meds, he's getting injections now. I'm not gonna lie, he was really big in cheeking his meds. He would cheek his meds, so he wouldn't take his meds, and the subculture is you cheek your meds, you sell your meds. He did that quite often. But now they have him on injections, and he's doing absolutely amazing right now.
That's really good. He is getting mental health support while being incarcerated, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. He's got a whole treatment team that, they do weekly workshops with him. He was taking relationship courses. And like, these are courses that, Trina I know she would wish her man would be able to take. There's relationship courses. He meets weekly with a therapist. They've been doing the dog support program where they have like therapy dogs come in. He was taking a drug addiction course, so they call it the OATS. And I don't know what OATS stands for, but it was to wean them off of their medication. He was on Suboxone for a while, but he got off of that because he just wanted to be completely off of anything that was related to subculture. And you know what? Trust me, it took years. He's been in 9 years. This April will be 9 years. And this is probably the longest he's been that he's sober, when I would say almost about a year now. And that's very hard for him. I mean, he was addicted to morphine, you name it. And he was big subculture guy. And he just, he's believed for a long time it was, well, I'm part of the subculture. I'm a lifer. I should engage in that. And I said, no, you don't have to. And where he is now, they've really taught him, like, you don't have to engage in that stuff. They frown upon subculture where he is. And I'm very grateful for that. The support that they've given him, they've really dug down into the layers with him, where he's had to, really dig down to right down to his childhood in order to overcome the things so he can get where he is today. And he's learning, like today we were just talking and he learned about like resentment, letting go of resentment, letting go of the pain. You had to hit down and start talking about your deep, deep inner feelings right back from your childhood in order to move forward. And he's done that. It was hard.
Is your husband and Trina's boyfriend in the same facility?
No.
No, no,
No, mine's
no.
in Alberta, in an Alberta prison. So just like a regular institution, regular prison. She's fortunate enough that like her husband was also in like, but not only like in I think Edmonton Max and other one also that she dealt with. She also dealt with Drum where my man is. They're very fortunate that now her man's is like a regional psychiatry center or
Yeah, regional
that's
psychiatric
it.
center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they like her man is they refer to them as patients. So there is the treatment. They actually give a fuck about like their mental health, whereas in like the regular prisons they don't give a shit. The guards are sitting there on their phones like
So your husband is not receiving any classes or any support
absolutely not. There's
whatsoever.
nothing for him to take. Like they talk about like rehabilitation and like, all this stuff. But if you're not going to give them the tools, and, I mean, me and Sherri are also part of like a CSC like Facebook page, and they talk about like, oh, we gave them the tools to rehabilitate. Like, what fucking tools were those? Because like, like they still have to seek treatment outside of the out of the prison. That makes no sense to me.
I'm liking to see the contrast so that the audience can see the contrast of different prison systems and how they operate, and how there is a lot of people who get in the end no real rehabilitation at this rehabilitated sourced site.
Yeah, there is a big difference. Like my husband, like I said, he weekly, daily, he's going to programming where, in drum, and I know my ex was in drum. If you're not doing a job, it's mostly
That's all it
jobs. If you're
is.
not doing your job, that's all it is. That's all they have is jobs where, my husband does work. He works in a greenhouse, but it's a greenhouse and it's therapeutic to, they're doing things and everything's about therapy. St. John's Ambulance brings in therapy dogs and all the staff is like one-on-one. And like, even I was just telling Trina today, I came into my visit early. I walked in and the guard and the dog handler at the front gate were like, oh, hey, look who it is. And I sat and, I was shooting shit with them for 20 minutes before the visit. I did I changed my clothes. I came out. They're like, how are you? And it's like another thing, I went to go see my husband on Wednesday because it was Valentine's Day and there was a snowstorm coming and I drove back to Regina. So I drove up for 3 hours. I drove back for 3 hours. And then the next day they were all like, hey, Bronson, did your wife get home safe? How was your wife? Did she make it home okay? Because there was a snowstorm. So, I don't get that at any other institution. But like my husband says, we kind of look at them like family. When I come in for my PFEs, I'm going in on Monday. Usually staff will come in during the week and they'll knock on the door and they're like, hey, how are you guys doing? And, the clinical social worker, I've actually had the warden, he's on his way out and he'll stop in if we're outside and he's like, how's it going? How are you guys doing? They're very family oriented out there. They're very, just a lot of treatment. That's all they want. They want the best for these guys and these women that are there.
Don't get me wrong. Like anytime that I've gone to visit as well, like I mean, like I think everybody also forgets that these like everybody that works at the prison, they also are still like they're human, they're real people. So, like I'll shoot the shit with them. Like, it's just I mean, they got a job to do. I get it. But I think it's wrong. I think they're doing it wrong, but they don't get a say either because they are just employees, right?
Yeah, it's definitely it starts from the top and then works its way down. And in regards to, I just want to also point out that I really like that you pointed out, Sherri, that you have to have a lot of patience because you have to remember that these men are still human and they're literally locked up in a very
Mm-hmm.
confined space. In a way, it's not really healthy or entirely humane for a person to stay content. So there will be a little glitch of like bitterness that could come out here and there, or sadness. And just recognizing that and having the patience for that is really good to share and pass on to family members who is incarcerated and may not have that patience, but may learn to install that patience for their family.
And that's true. And like with my husband's institution, because there's a hospital setting and because they're classified patients, they really don't have lockdowns. So like I know somewhere like Drum and regular prisons, they have lockdowns, they do cell searches, and you can get lockdowns for 3-4 days. They do not have that. So just recently, this past week, there was a virus. I guess it was a norovirus that was going around on my husband's unit and other unit, and they locked them down basically for 72 hours or 48 hours, but it was mostly confined to the unit. So they started them with the cells, and then they realized that's not helping their mental health. So they kind of confined them to the unit, and they were stuck out there. And other than that, like I wasn't able to visit last weekend, so that was really a shock for me because I was still up in Saskatoon. They really don't have lockdowns. I think in the almost 2 years we've been there, this was the only second one, which the last one was last November, in November of 2022, when there was COVID going around the unit. And because it's a hospital, they're very they're very clean out there. They're very thorough. If there's a virus going around or somebody has COVID, they're very quick to like contain it before it spreads to the institution, where other institutions, they just kind of seem to like give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's a little different. She knows what I'm talking about.
With Trina, just a quick question. How did you spend your Valentine's Day?
I spent my Valentine's Day shit talking Sherri and Alex over Facebook Messenger. That's how I felt. That's how I spent it. Yeah. It's kind of lonely. Like, you know, we get a phone call. That's all. That's what we get. You know, a phone call like Happy Valentine's Day. But like, you know, I'm super fortunate, like super incredibly fortunate that I do have Sherri. Like I said, when I first met her, like what was it, like 6, almost 7 years ago now, begging her and crying and like all this stuff. Like we built quite the friendship, and I am so incredibly grateful because like I sit there and like, you know, not everybody gets like, you know, like, oh, they all go and spend Valentine's Day with their loved ones. You don't get to do that, so like we all just kind of like spend it together, sort of. I mean, because we live in a different province, but like I'm super fortunate.
With you not spending your Valentine's Day with him entirely, in what ways do you find moments of joy and connection with your boyfriend?
There's those calls. Yeah. There's those calls. Sherri knows what I'm talking about. She just had a sex party, like not like that. Oh my god. No,
An open.
you know what I mean, right? Like, we still have the calls. We still like we're sort of intimate. I don't. You know what I mean?
You have sex talk, sex phone.
Yeah. So we
Okay.
talk. Like there's like I tell him everything. Um.
In regards to visitation, was that not an option for you guys?
Um, okay, so here's where it gets a little bit like, so I've also spent time on like being the criminal myself. So there's like you have a certain amount of time where you have to go before you can even apply. Otherwise you're not going to get visitation. So I just recently was able to apply for visitation. I have sent 2 applications now, and still it has not even been approved. Well, not even been approved, they're not even acknowledging that they got it. So, and I've sent it twice now. So like not only has it not been denied, they're just claiming that they haven't even received it. So I'm not really sure what's going on. I mean, he'll be out by October again on day parole anyway, but yeah.
Come on, Alberta. We got
Right?
we got applications.
Impossible. It takes like 6 to 8 weeks, and like one of them, like I swear, like it's not like it's been sent back, because it hasn't, but they've been sitting on it for like, you know, 4 months. Like, come on.
Yeah, that's a while. I'll
Yeah.
definitely advise you to give them a call every day. So
I
they're
hope.
Saskatchewan was like that
I
too.
hope.
Saskatchewan was like that too because before I got approved, it took 10 months. I had to send my stuff to SAS Penn where we initially started out like 7 times. And it was up until I told my husband, we were just dating at that point. I said, if I don't hear a response soon, I'm gonna sue them and file a human rights complaint. And then all of a sudden they must have heard me because then all of a sudden, like 2 hours later, they called me up and they're like, Sherri, you're approved. You can book a visit right now if you want. So we did video visits because of COVID. And yeah, so it's like, that's why I say everything I have, like, I know some people hate me because they're like, oh, you get whatever you want. You get PFEs every 60 days. And it's like, okay, if you really know my fucking story, I bent over backwards. I pretty much let these guards, you know, rape me in the ass to get what I want. And so I deserve everything I get. Like, I don't know how much more blunt to put it than that. You know, I've jumped hoop after hoop after hoop. It's like they tell me jump out and I'm like, how high? And I do it. And then I get to there and it's like I got another thing to go through. So everything I have, I feel
You fought for.
I've earned it and I deserve what I get. Where I know people go through a struggle and they're like, I'm not getting the same thing you are. And I don't know. You know, there's one thing a guard at regional psych taught my husband, and he told me it. He pulled us both aside during a PFE. He talked to him, and he's like, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told your husband. Attitude and effort is everything. And in a place like regional psych, it is. If you have a good attitude and you're putting in the effort, they will keep you there. If you're not, you're out as quick as you can.
I was just going to just add into that point because you're talking about, you know, the resilience that you went through, and that's why you deserve what you deserve, the treatment that you and your husband are receiving. And the question that I have for you is just to, can you share a specific moment of resilience or strength that stood out during your journey with your husband serving a life sentence?
I think the biggest moment, and I was actually talking about with my husband about this afternoon, the biggest pivotal moment for me was when we got married. And I think I brought this up in our last interview. I had such animosity towards the system. And when I walked into, with my friend that's here with me, when I walked into my wedding and I was like, who are all these people? You know, there were all these people in suits and, you know, business suits, and they had business clothes on. And they went into the visiting room and they went out to the courtyard first. I'm like, who are all these people? Like, I knew APTN was coming, but they were coming by phone, so I knew it wasn't them. And they're like, oh, it's the warden and, you know, the regional director, Jason Hope's office. Like, he couldn't come, but he had somebody from his office. And when I found out it was the woman that I used to get on the phone with from regional headquarters, and I'd be freaking out about my husband. And when she introduced, she's like, oh, I'm Sherri. Her name was Sherri too. She's like, I'm like, oh, you're the one I always used to call and scream at. And when I realized that was like my biggest moment where I was like, you know, these are all people that I don't want to say shit on, but I argued with them and I sent them all these long emails and I was fighting, and they literally showed up to my wedding. Another big change for me was, I think even before any of that even happened, was with SAS Penn. A lot of people hate that I did this, but my husband told me forever to message the warden of SAS Penn and apologize. And I was like, what the fuck am I going to apologize for? Like, what the fuck did I do? And you know what? I was sitting heavy on my heart one day after I testified in court on a dangerous offender hearing for a guy who's up on a dangerous offender. And the Crown asked me, do you consider yourself pro-criminal? And I was like, no, not at all. But then I thought about it and I'm like, I'm not saying that I'm pro-criminal or not pro-criminal, but it sat heavy in my heart. So what I did is I was scrolling through Twitter and I seen these guards bitching about how they didn't get any recognition during COVID. So that was my key moment. I realized I had to step out of my comfort zone and I had to acknowledge what they did. So I emailed the warden of SAS Penn and I said, you know what? Look, I'm very sorry that, you know, I didn't take into consideration during COVID when I was, you know, trying to make you guys look like the bad guys. And I didn't recognize the stuff that you had. COVID came at a time where nobody knew what the hell was going on how to deal with it. And maybe I shouldn't have, you know, went to the media right away. Maybe I should have sat with them a little bit. She's telling me no. I should have maybe sat with them a little bit and tried to maybe negotiate. And I see that with my job. I work in child family services, and that's what we do. We sit with, you know, the ministry and all these people, and we try to come up with plans to make things better. And as much as I don't like to admit it, but yes, I have to look outside of my comfort zone and be like, yes, maybe I could have done things better. So once I apologized to her, that hatred that she had for me and I had maybe for her and all of them, it disintegrated. And it was gone. And she replied back to me and she says, you know what, thank you very much for your apology. I hope nothing but the best for you and Bronson. And now she's at regional headquarters and I have literally not had any problems. So was that opening a door? Maybe. But as Christian, because my in-laws are Christian, my husband's Christian, I've become Christian. The biggest thing for me was I did that because I learned I had to forgive. And yes, I can still always dwell on it, but I had to forgive for everything that happened. And I think, honestly, a lot of people look at me like I'm nuts in the head for doing that, but it was the biggest thing for me, and it made me feel so much better. And like I say, the doors are open. I got my PFEs after that. I stopped getting all these targeting. So at the end of the day, it worked for me. I don't think many people would do it, but I did.
Honestly,
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Shaking her
There's
head
no
like,
shame in
no.
the game. Like, girl, this is where her and I are not gonna like agree, because like for my loved one, like during COVID, Like the guards, they had like a fucking Christmas party. They're the ones that brought COVID into the fucking facility, and like so many people got sick. So many. Like I feel like saying sorry, like
I
something you didn't
agree.
do anything wrong. So like we'll never agree. We will always agree to
No,
disagree on that shit. But
no, that's true. And the reason I said sorry was just because I did go a little hard on them. I did, I did make them look like really bad people. And they were, and I said this for years. Every interview I ever did during COVID was I said, there is ways they could prevent this COVID. They're going out of the institution with their uniforms on and then they're coming back in. But I do have to, when I look at it, like my husband said, you got to look at it. Like, you said, I did say some things that I probably shouldn't have said. There are steps I could have as an advocate.
fair
And I'm
enough.
looking at my boss, like it is. And I look at things now because I've learned over the years, personal, professional. And like I told her, I said the reason I was the way I was is I had animosity towards the system. I dealt with child family services with my children. That made me very angry. I was very angry at the justice system for putting my husband in prison for life. And I think I used a lot of that inner anger, and I didn't know how to separate personal from professional. As an advocate, I needed to be professional, but I let my personal opinions. So I've learned now, because my job now requires me to separate the two. So I think that's the only reason why I did that.
No, I get it.
Yeah, sometimes I can't explain it even to myself why I did that. But that I think is where I became the most resilient. And you know what? From there, I literally did get respect from I do. I have a lot of respect for the guards at RPC, and I think they have respect for me. And like I always say, and I've said this last time, I've said this so many times, I look at them like family. I come into Christmas, I bring them boxes of chocolates. I gave them to the warden. I gave them to VNC. I give them to the front gate. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you're
kissing,
kicking ass. That's what you're doing.
I don't.
I mean, you gotta do what you
I
gotta
don't know
do.
how
There's no
long.
shame in the game. Whatever.
Exactly. And I don't know how long we're gonna be there for, but they do. They do a lot for my husband, they do a lot for me. I have problems, they address it. I had issues with my husband, I brought up their concerns, and they're very prompt. They're like that to deal with things. So have I been the hot-headed mouthpiece that I was, 2 years ago? Even last year at this time, my husband and I talked about this again today. Last year at this time, I was fighting for my PFVs because they're trying to tell me I was targeted. And they've even noted to him too, like you and your wife have come a long way. Your wife she's calmer. They put me in situations, I think, to see how I react, and I don't go off the handle at all anymore.
And I honestly feel that when it comes down to how people are going to respond to your issue, a lot of people like to respond to someone who's like, hey, can you please help me? This is the situation. More of a calmness as
Yes.
opposed to, you suck. That's why I'm going to call you today. I'm calling you tomorrow. I'm
Yes.
calling you. You're going to see me call you every other. You know what I mean? And it's not really that. It doesn't really help anybody. It just puts you in the blacklist.
No.
Do not answer her.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
It is
How it
true.
was
It
like up
sucks,
until
but
a year ago when my husband was at Edmonton, and Trina would probably remember this because she was living in Calgary and I was living in Edmonton, and I was having so much problems. I was like ready to start a group, and I was going to chain myself to the fence outside and swallow the key and just stay there.
yes, he was.
And I used to bug my husband. I was like, I'll come through there with a fucking bulldozer. And they're all like, holy fuck, your wife is nuts. She probably would do that. And even when we first got to RPC, I was the same way. But Trina's been around me and she's seen me for, well, how many years? But over the past year, even my friend that's sitting here in the other room would say, I've completely grown in where I'm not a hothead. I don't want to do I will still do protests, but not against CSC. I find that if I'm calm, I get further. And I do. I get so much further just by being calm. And it's hard, trust me, it's freaking hard as hell. But I really sit there and I instead of just typing up a long freaking email like I'm so used to doing and hitting send when I'm mad, I like calm myself down, I think about it, and I don't write when I'm angry, and I've never had any problems anymore. In Edmonton, oh god, the warden didn't even want to fucking deal with me. The CX2 was like, I don't have to talk to you. I don't even need to tell you anything. Get out of here. Click bye. So it's
Well, thank you, Sherri, for definitely passing on that message, because I think the message that everyone needs to hear and take with them is that if you want your message to be clear, talk calmly,
yes.
talk patiently, let that person see your side in a way that they can hear you.
It's not what you say, it's how you say it. I've learned that. It's not what you say, but how you say it.
Trina, I just want
Yes.
to ask you, is there anything you want to share to the public before we close this
I
interview?
think my biggest thing is like Sherry's mentioned in like a different interview with you guys, people they look down on us. So like as soon as you come out, they're just like, oh, okay. Like there's not enough people that are speaking out about things. One of our like, well, Sherry can speak more on this after you give her mic back. But one of our girls, like one of the girls that she has been advocating for, she just got out after like doing 20 months in Pine Grove, and like she's the most strong, beautiful, like she's amazing, and her name is Faith Eagle.
Oh, we
Yeah.
know Faith Eagle.
Oh,
We
you
love
Yep.
guys
Faith
know.
Eagle.
That's amazing. No, she is absolutely freaking wonderful, and now she's back home. So like, I mean, like we're starting to grow. A lot more people are starting to speak out. A lot more people are like willing to like go out like and do that. And who gives a fuck what you like anybody thinks? Like we are too old to even give a shit.
Thank you so much, Trina, for sharing your thoughts and opinions. Sherry, I am going to give you this mic back. I want it back to me, okay? Here you go.
I agree with her. You know, like again, I was talking with my husband and we were talking about, prison wives. And like when we were in Edmonton, a lot of guards would be like, why the fuck is your wife with you? Like, you're a piece of shit. Why is she with you? You know, she has her life together and you're this piece of crap. You're an asshole. Like, what are you doing? You know, you're engaged in subculture. Why would this woman want to be with you? And, and my husband says it himself. He's like, at that point in time, he goes, he's kind of more pro CFC sometimes, but he's like, when now all those ion scan things were happening, he's like, he was actively engaged in his subculture at that time. And he's like, they see this, they're supposed to protect society. And he says part of the reason why they probably did what they did and they had these issues with the ion scanner is because they see this woman who has her life all together and she's with this guy who's not doing anything but engaging in subculture and sitting there sniffing rails off of shit. And it's like, why are you with her? So in a sense, I've kind of come to the conclusion that maybe they were like protecting me in a sense to whatever, but I'm a stubborn woman and I didn't care what they were doing. And at the end of the day, I just thought, I don't agree with what they're doing. It's my choice who I want to be with. But I didn't know he was actively that bad into his subculture. But he admits it to me now. And like, I don't know if that was the reason they were doing it or they just, whatever their reason. That's an assumption. I'm speculating. But I don't know. I get a lot of people that tell me like, how are you a prison wife? You work for Child Family Services, you're doing this, and you're smart and you kind of look good. Why would you want to be with a fucking inmate? And especially one serving life. And it's, you know what? It's like, what is the image of a prison wife? Most people tell me you're addicted, you have a criminal record, you're homeless, like all these things. And I'm completely far from that. I've actually, like I said, I've never met a prison wife that meets that criteria. Some of them are psychiatric nurses. Some of them are truck drivers. Some of them are working. Some are unemployed. Some of them are housewives. But I've never seen one that's just like homeless and addicted to drugs. Like, not at all.
Yeah, so it's kind of like ending that idea that, prison wives are people who are on drugs or unkept.
Exactly.
This is the
Yeah,
truth. They
no,
will
we are real people. We lead
want
lead like very productive lives. Like we
that.
have good jobs. Like we have children. We have families. Like we are not like we're not like the scum of the earth. Like we are somebody's.
Real people trying to
Yeah.
get back their significant other. So thank you so much, ladies, for sharing your story and coming on today. I really appreciated this interview. I think I had a little fun just listening to you guys more than anything else. But
Comment on like on the other times. Like we have this whole chat. We're a good time, okay?
I might join the
Sex
chat.
parties. No.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you guys and thank you so much. We would like to thank Sherri Gordon and Trina Riel for sharing their story with us today. For all those incarcerated, remember, freedom is a must. Free all the lifers. Shout out Private Spaceship, and thank you all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and follow Handcuff Status Inc. on all major platforms. And never forget our mission, breaking the chains of injustice. Take care, and until our next